I've said this before about the first reading, but just a reminder that, again, God is testing Abraham, and he didn't know he was being tested. We're told this by the author of Genesis, so that we can have that insight. But he didn't know. He just saw this is going to be what I have to do. And this wouldn't have been an unusual request from the gods of the pagan gods of that time. And so he says, okay, well, this is what is expected of me. But then God, of course, reveals that he is not one who wants human sacrifice at all through this story of what's happening. But I want to look at the reaction of Abraham. God calls to him, Abraham, and he says, "Here I am." My understanding is that the Hebrew word for that is Hineni. And Hineni is not oh, you were calling for me, I'm over here. It's not here I am, like, here's my location, but rather, I am ready to do your will. And he says this without even knowing what God's will is. It's a response, I am ready to do your will. Here I am, Hineni. Abraham, Hineni, and then later in the same reading, as he's about to sacrifice his son, God calls Abraham, Abraham, Hineni. Here I am. I'm ready to do your will. I'm ready to act as you call me to act, Almighty God. And the beautiful thing about this is in the book of the prophet Isaiah, in chapter 58, God is talking about how, you've not been following the Sabbaths and keeping my commandments and all these things. But if you do, if you keep my commandments, if you follow my law, if you follow my Sabbaths, then when you cry out to me, I will say, Hineni. I will say, I am here. That God says, see, I will make myself obedient even to you because of my love for you. But so Abraham, that first reaction to God's call, what do you want me to do? I'm here. I will obey. I trust you. I trust your love for me. This is the characteristic of a person of God, is someone who is willing to be obedient to God. And then we look at what he's asking of him. He asks him to sacrifice his son, his only, his beloved, Isaac. Not only is he sacrificing his son whom he loves, he's also sacrificing the promise God made to him. Right? Because God promises him to become a great nation, and that his name will be great, and that kings will come from him. How? Through Isaac. And so not only is he saying, okay, I'm giving up something I love, I'm even giving up your promises, Almighty God. And sometimes God is asking us, are you willing to surrender your idea of control? Do you trust me? I think about Cardinal Pell, the cardinal from Australia, who was falsely accused of sexual abuse. And in his trial and in the appeal, all of the evidence was pointing to his innocence, and there was no evidence pointing to his guilt, and yet he was still put in prison. It was only after it went to their Supreme Court that he was finally released. And in that time, he had to give up. It was taken from him, his ability to minister as a priest, as a bishop. It was all taken from him. And he had to surrender that to the Lord. What his image of his priesthood looked like. I know last year that same thing happened to me. Not that I went into prison, of course, but with the inability to have public masses, and my whole image of how I was priest was taken away from me. No longer was I ministering at Mass. No longer was I able to have these meetings with people and help people and face-to-face and all these things. And it was a time of dying to myself. And even after we were able to have public masses, there was a change in all that. And the Lord is saying to us, will you say, Hineni, when I call out to you? Will you say, here I am, I'm ready to do your will, I trust you, Lord? Are you willing to surrender anything that you're holding on to, grasping onto, that you think you have control over? In our meditation today, in our prayer today, I invite you really to spend time, what are the things that you may be clinging to? And it may not be things as such, but it may be, for instance, the way we're perceived by others, our own understanding of our vocation. It may be the ones we love. We're saying, God, I don't have control over any of this. Everything can be taken away from me. And the reality is, everything that's not given is lost. And so God invites us today to trust Him because He is trustworthy. He is loving more. He loves us more than we love ourselves. He invites us to surrender to Him and to trust even when He's asking something of us that looks like there is no way beyond this. There is no way out. That He can bring even resurrection to His promises even when it seems He's taken them away.